The series begins with our MC, Shinpei Ajiro, in a dream where he encounters Ushio. His childhood friend Ushio tells him to find her and protect Mio, her sister. She asks him to close his eyes and then gives him a gift. Shinpei's parents died while he was a child, and Alan adopted him. He lived with Alan and his 2 daughters until he traveled to Tokyo to sharpen his culinary skills. Now, Shinpei returns to the island of Hitogashima 2 years later to attend Ushio's funeral. Shinpei wakes up in the boat and abruptly buries his head between someone's breasts. He apologizes immediately, but the woman slaps him. The ferry later arrives at Hitogashima and Shinpei is welcomed by Mio. But Mio falls into the sea because she couldn't get her bicycle to stop. As she fell, Shinpei caught a glimpse of her underwear. Shinpei learns that they had an autopsy for Ushio before her burial. Then a light flashed from behind him, but he has no idea what it was. He meets his childhood friend Suo, who tells him that Ushio died trying to save a kid from drowning. He says that Kobayawa Shiori, the kid Ushio died saving, has been in shock since the incident. At night, Shinpei is having dinner with Mio and Alan, while another Mio stands outside their house. This Mio is seen by the local policeman Totsumura Tetsu, who asks if she's okay before she proceeds to stab him multiple times. Suo later calls Shinpei to tell him that there were bruises on Ushio's neck when she died and that it might not have been an accident. Mio gives Shin a necklace that Ushio had on when she died and then cries to him for her emotional support. Shinpei later lets out all his emotions when he finds out that Ushio still had the necklace he gave her when they were kids. The next day, after Ushio's burial, Alan opens up the diner. A drunk man asks Shinpei if he found the woman with the big oppai he was looking for earlier, but Shin does not recall seeing that man. The police officer enters and tells them that the Kobayawas have gone missing, which upsets Mio and causes her to leave the diner. Shin follows her, and she tells him that Shiori claims she saw someone in the mountains that looked like her before the incident. An old hunter overhears them and calls it the shadow sickness. The shadows kill those who see them when they pretend to be the person they killed before killing everyone else. The people afflicted by this sickness are to go to the Haruko shrine to cleanse themselves. Shinpei believes all this is superstition till Mio confesses that she saw Ushio's shadow 3 days before she passed. Shin decides that they go to the shrine and ask about these shadows. They go to the shrine, but nobody's home. Mio then sees someone she thinks is Shiori in the forest and asks that they go after her. They go into the forest, but don't see anyone until they hear a gunshot. Shin dashes over to the sound, and it's the woman he touched on the boat. She is shot and mutters something before being killed by Mio's shadow. The shadow kills Mio and then kills Shinpei. Shinpei jerks up in the boat again, following the same action he took the last time. He realizes that the person sitting across from him is the woman that got shot in the forest. We find that Shinpei has returned to July 22nd, the day he arrived on the island, and that everything that happened that day is now being relived. It's nighttime again, and now Shinpei is distraught. He can't quite grasp all that was happening. Shinpei goes outside to clear his head when he witnesses Mio's shadow stab the police officer Tetsu multiple times. The shadow emits a flash and creates a copy of the dead police officer. The new shadow makes the body disappear and collects Tetsu's memories. The shadows are debating why the real Mio isn't dead yet when they hear Shinpei's phone ring. Mio then stabs Shin in the neck, and Shin ascends into an astral form. Ushio, in this form, reminds Shin once again to protect Mio. Shinpei is back to the 22nd again, but this time he stops Mio from falling into the sea. In the mountains, the woman from the boat is hanging upside down and mumbling reports on a recording. It seems she knows a lot about the shadows. At home, Shinpei calls Tetsu and lies about a fight in the shopping district to get him far away from the house. Shin is now clearly aware that something is off with the island, so he decides to video Mio's shadow. Now, at the start of the series, one thing people noticed was that Shinpei had 2 different eye colors. Not that different, but one eye had a lighter blue than the other. By morning, Shinpei watches the footage from last night's video. He shows Mio the video, and she says to warn Shiori, but Shinpei decides to go alone to the Koba Mart. The neighbor lets Shinpei into the house, and they both decide to search for the Kobas. There are human figure marks all over the living room, and Shin knows those came from a shadow disposing of the body. There were also random dents on the wooden floor. Shin heads upstairs, but before he gets the light switch, there's a flash from beside him, and he sees Shiori's shadow. The shadow produces a shadow of him, but just as it's about to act, the Kobayawa's neighbor walks upstairs, so it flees. Shin decides to ask around for the woman in the boat. He experiences deja vu when he mentions her massive breasts to an inn owner. The owner was the same drunk man from the diner before. According to the man, she visited the cafe yesterday night, but did not stay. Later, Tetsu gives Shin Ushio's phone, saying that she came to him and told him to give it to Shin if anything should happen to her. Shin then explains to Suo and Mio everything he knew about the shadows, so they all decide to meet again at the Hito Summer Festival. At the festival, Shin sees Ushio and runs after her to the beach. When Shin arrives at the shore, he finds that this Ushio is a shadow. Shadow Ushio tells Shin that she loves him and has always wanted to confess to him the next time they meet. Shin decides to hide Shadow Ushio before any of their friends see her. Shinpei talks about the new memories he shared with Ushio to the shadow, and it remembers all of them. Shin is stopped on his way back to the Omiyokuri ceremony by Shadow Mio, who asks him how he knew to record her the other day. Shinpei's shadow shows up and updates his memories from Shinpei. Mio tries to murder Shinpei, but Shin's shadow stops her because he knows Shinpei can return to the 22nd if he dies. Mio breaks Shin's arm while Shin's shadow goes up to meet Shinpei's friends. Shadow Mio is then shot twice in the head by the lady from the boat. She aims for the shadow beneath Mio and then kills her. She introduces herself as Nagumo Ryunosuke, Shinpei's favorite novelist. Nagumo-san can tell shadows and humans apart using their shadows. She explains that the shadows are flat on the ground and they don't allow people to step on them. Shadows thrive by devouring human data, and the human figure marks on the floor represent humans that were devoured by shadows. A light flashes over them, so Shinpei runs up to look for his friends. The shadows have killed everyone at the gathering and make a hill out of their corpses. There's a huge giant shadow who can copy Nagumo's form and gunmanship. The shadow busts around at Nagumo, but a simulation helps Nagumo evade the bullets. Shinpei's eye is the same as their mother's, and the giant shadow is baffled as to why Shinpei had this eye because it gave people the ability to manipulate time. The shadows take Shadow Ushio away and dispose of Mio, after which the giant shadow shouts out to Mother and a young girl glowing bright red appears in the sky. The shadows then swallow everyone on the island. Shinpei then begs Nagumo to kill him so that he can return to the past and change everything. Finally, we see the story through Nagumo's, or rather Minakata Hizuru's POV. Hizuru was a resident of Hitogashima when she was little until her brother Ryunosuke got killed by a shadow 14 years ago. Hizuru sees that her island friend has been taken over by a shadow and informs hunter Nezu Genjiro. She hands Nezu her other cell phone and tells him to call her if it rings. Shinpei is sent back in time, where he discovers that all Kobayawas are shadows. He also learns that Mio was copied by a shadow a day before he arrived on the island. Shinpei then starts asking people about shadow sickness to gather more information about them. Alan gives Shin Hizuru's phone number, so he calls, but Nezu answers and directs him to the route behind the funeral hall. When Shinpei arrives, Nezu fires at his shadow to ensure he is the real one. Nezu permits Shinpei to see Nagumo, and she soon discovers that Shinpei is a time traveler. In summary, Ushio died but was able to warn Hizuru and Shinpei about the shadows. She then gives Shinpei the ability to travel back in time. Finally, please click the notification bell icon so you get notified of all our new videos. Until next time, farewell!